This video will show you how to speed up a WordPress website and get excellent scores on Google's Page Speed Insights and GT metrics using the online shop from our previous video as our test case. We all know how important speed is nowadays. People have grown accustomed to getting results fast, and if a page takes over 4 or 5 seconds to load, there is a 90% chance that they'll simply hit the back button and go to the next one. So a faster website means lower bounce rates and higher conversions. And to add to all that, the page speed is also one of the ranking factors on Google searches. Let's check out some of the page load time averages for each industry in the US. You can see that a load time of about 3-4 seconds is considered best practice, but the industry averages are nearly double than that. We'll use the WooCommerce-based online store built in our previous video as our test case. Let's see how it fares with the default settings. We'll use GT metrics and Google's Page Speed Insights, or PSI, to test it, as these are widely regarded as the most important performance analyzers. Let's go to gtmetrics.com and run the test. And our performance scores are quite poor. The page speed score is 44% or grade F, and the Y-slow score is 58% grade E. You can see that the fully loaded time is 2.8 seconds and the total page size is 2.56 megabytes with a total of 76 requests. So we're starting with a really slow website, and that's quite detrimental for an online store that's supposed to convert well. We'll apply several optimization techniques that will shoot up our score to grade A. Let's also check our website with Google's PSI. One important thing to note right off the bat here is that Google's PSI tends to produce quite volatile results, and it's normal to see fluctuations with as much as 10 or even 15 points. Don't be shocked if you see that, just make sure to run several tests and you should be able to get a more accurate measurement. Another thing worth mentioning is that I've intentionally slowed down this website just a little bit so I can show you how exactly each change improves the performance. For example, PHP 7 is the default PHP version for all new accounts on our servers, but I've set this WordPress installation to run on PHP 5.6 as a start. Setting up a backup. Right from the get-go, I would like to stress that some of the techniques described in this video could cause issues with certain websites, but have no fear, we'll set up a backup of your work in WordPress so you can always revert to it if a problem occurs. Furthermore, in most cases, if a certain plugin or setting causes an issue with your website, you can always undo the change by deactivating the plugin or rolling back that setting. Before you make significant changes to your WordPress installation, it's always a good idea to have a backup. So we'll start by generating a backup of our entire WordPress the way it currently is, so we can easily revert to it. To do that, go to the Control panel, WordPress, Manage WordPress Installations. There, click on the Backup Now button under the Backup section. The process could take a minute. And there it is. You can see that we have an actual backup, and we can easily roll back to it by clicking the Restore button. Use SSL. Although the impact might not be so noticeable in terms of actual performance optimizations, the first thing we want to do is configure our website to work over SSL. This might sound strange, but it comes with the added benefit that it enforces the use of HTTP2 on your website. As you can see from the graph here, HTTP2 has significant performance improvements over HTTP. We already activated a free SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt as part of our previous tutorial on building the store. So now we'll just have to configure our WordPress application to use it and work over HTTPS. To do that, go to the WordPress section in the Control panel, Manage WordPress Installations, click Edit next to our actual installation. There, all you need to do is place a check on the Use HTTPS option and press the Change button. This will automatically convert all database entries that contain the old HTTP URL and change them to HTTPS. So now our website is working over an encrypted connection, and you can see that its address is now https://ictsoftstoredemo.com. But before you test it, I'll recommend that you clear the cache of your web browser. Use PHP-7. PHP-7 offers a significant speed improvement over previous PHP versions. You can see that PHP-7 can execute 3 times as many requests per second compared to PHP-5 versions. Normally, you shouldn't have any problems if your WordPress is up to date, along with all the plugins and themes. You can change the PHP version for your account via the control panel, PHP settings. However, it's important to test your actual website afterwards. If you notice an error, you can try switching to a prior PHP version, and if the problem persists, you can contact our support team for assistance. Use PHP-FPM. PHP-FPM pre-starts several PHP processes, ready to handle requests and have them sleep until new requests come in, which means it can respond much faster than traditional CGI. So with zero overhead of starting and stopping processes, PHP-FPM responds much faster. In the context of performance metric and average site speed, PHP-FPM addresses the initial server response time that you might see on reports from Google's PageSpeed Insights. Let's go ahead and activate PHP-FPM for our account. You can do this from the PHP settings menu in the control panel. There, change the PHP handler from CGI to FPM. Update WordPress. The next thing we want to do is make sure that our entire WordPress installation is up to date. So let's go to our dashboard, Updates menu, and check if there are any pending updates. And you can see that we have 6 outdated plugins, and there is also an update available for our Astra team. Let's apply all these updates. Minimize the number of plugins. Plugins bring extra functionalities to your WordPress, but they could be quite taxing to your average site speed. Having too many plugins could significantly slow down your website, so you want to keep the number of active plugins to minimum. Let's check out our list of active plugins under Plugins, Installed Plugins, Active menu. You can see that we have the default Hello Dolly plugin, which we don't really need, and the Kismet anti-spam plugin, which is quite handy, but we haven't even configured it with an API key, so let's deactivate both. Every case is different and our installation is quite basic, but we've seen websites with over 40 active plugins and most of them are not even necessary. You could use the Query Monitor plugin for WordPress, as it gives you a breakdown of just how much time each plugin requires in order to fully load. So you could run it on your installation, and based on the generated results, you could completely deactivate a certain plugin or try to find a faster alternative. Optimize your home page. Having too much content on your main page could hurt your speed score. A lot of resources result in a lot of network requests and a higher page size, which in turn translates into slower load times. For example, image sliders could cause major slowdowns, especially if the images are extremely large. In such cases, you could consider seriously scaling down those images or lowering the number of slides. Loading too many posts on your main page could slow down your site as well. So it's all about striking the perfect balance and finding that fine line between content and performance. Ideally, you want a website that's as lean as possible so it can perform at optimal speeds. We can test our website now to see how much our scores have improved thus far. Note that so far we switched our WordPress to HTTPS, thereby enforcing the use of HTTP2. We also updated our plugins and minimized the number of active plugins. We also switched to PHP 7.4 and moved to PHP-FPM. You can see that our page speed score has remained the same, but our YSlow score improved from 58 to 66%, so it's an 8% gain, which is not bad. Let's perform a test with Google's PSI tool. And you can see that our mobile score has improved, but with just a few points. Enable compression and leverage browser caching. Our next step is to address the recommendations suggested by our performance analyzers. Namely, GTmetrix are asking us to enable compression and leverage browser caching, and Google's PSI is saying the same things but with slightly different terms: enable text compression and use efficient cache policy on static assets. You can easily enable compression and browser caching for your WordPress website using our control panel. Go to the WordPress section there, and under Tools, enable Optimize WordPress. Let's click the info for more details. This tool will add a set of directives to the htaccess file in the main directory of WordPress. These include enabling gzip compression and with mod deflate, leveraging browser caching, and skipping 404 error handling by WordPress for lower CPU usage. Sounds great, so let's click the Optimize button. Now we can take a look at our .htaccess file and see the newly added directives. You can see the line Begin Optimization enabled via Control Panel WordPress. So the first segment here enables the gzip compression. You can see that it also excludes it for certain browsers that are known to not support gzip, so they would get the uncompressed version of these files. You can see that it also sets the cache for images to 1 year, which is exactly what Google suggests. CSS files are usually changed more often as webmasters tinker with the design of the page, so their cache is set to 1 month by default. So now that we enabled compression and caching, let's see our results. You can see a dramatic increase to 86% for the page speed score and 88% YSlow score. You can see that the actual size of the page has been reduced to 1.44 megabytes with a total of 76 requests. Optimize images. The next thing on the list is to optimize the images, or as Google says, serve images in next-gen formats. Image formats like JPEG 2000, JPEG XR, and WebP often provide better compression than PNG or JPEG, which means faster downloads and less data consumption. The great thing with WordPress is that you don't have to manually convert each and every image that you've already uploaded to your website. You can use a plugin to automate this entire process. The plugin we'll use is WebP Express. Let's check its description. With little effort, WordPress admins can have their site serving auto-generated WebP images to browsers that support it, while still serving JPEG and PNG files to browsers that don't support WebP. WebP Convert is able to convert images using multiple methods. There are the local conversion methods, iMagick, CWebP, and so on. If none of these work on your host, there are the cloud alternatives, some of which are paid. Good news is that the necessary local conversion methods, such as iMagick and CWeb and GD, are supported on our servers. Let's go ahead and install and activate WebP Express. Now our next step is to set it up. So click the settings link and you can see the rewrite rules are not active yet. They'll be activated the first time you click the Save Settings button. Let's check out the actual settings here first. Operation mode is set to varied image responses by default. In the varied image response mode, WebP creates redirection rules for images such that a request for a JPEG will result in a WebP, but only if the request comes from a WebP enabled browser. That's okay. Scope, uploads and themes, that's okay as well. Image types to work on, both JPEG and PNG. Scroll down to the conversion method. The conversion method on top will be tried first. You can see that the first on the list, CWebP, is supported in our environment, but the next one isn't. So let's drag and drop the fully supported ImageMagick over it, and the GT extension can come third. Currently it's at the very bottom. Convert on upload. This option is enabled by default and it will convey every newly added image to your media library to WebP right at the moment of upload. The bulk conversion option is not really needed. So this is all that we need to do. Let's click the Save Settings and Force.new htaccess rules. Configuration was saved, rewrite rules were saved to the following files. And you can see these three .htaccess files. Let's do a live test to see if everything works as expected. Enable direct redirection to existing converted images. Live test. Testing redirection to existing WebP. Copying JPEG to uploads folder. OK. Let's check that the browser supporting WebP gets the WebP when the JPEG is requested, We got a WebP, just what we wanted, great. Now let's check that browsers not supporting WebP gets the JPEG. Alrighty, we got that JPEG, great. Enable redirection to converter, let's live test that as well. Let's check the browser supporting WebP gets a freshly converted WebP when the JPEG is requested. We got a WebP and we got it from the PHP script. Everything looks good here. Create WebP files upon request, live test. And you can see we got a WebP, so everything looks great here as well. Now let's test our website with GTmetrix again and see the results. And you can see that our page speed score increased to 89%. More importantly, our page size has decreased from 1.44 megabytes to 941 kilobytes. If you test the website with Google's Page Speed Insights tool, you would notice that it's no longer recommending us to serve images in next-gen format, and the score has increased as well. However, you can see that the leveraged browser caching issue has come back again, and we have a score of F for a list of images. Meanwhile, Google's PSI is saying that we should serve static assets with an efficient cache policy, and we can see these images there. All these images are actually being converted on the fly to WebP. Expires headers specified in our htaccess file work only if WebP version of the image is already available. When it's created on demand, these expire headers have zero effect as request is transferred to PHP. To fix that, go to the WebP Express plugin settings and take a look at the cache control header. Controls the cache control header on successful conversion. Switch it from do not set to set, public, 1 year. Now let's test the site again. And we got a 97% page speed score, which is nearly perfect. More importantly, the leveraged browser caching score is now A, 97 points, which confirms that our fix using the cache control header setting has worked correctly. Install an optimization plugin. The last thing on our list, but definitely not in terms of impact, is to install an optimization plugin. Every WordPress installation is different, and in terms of speed, it's practically impossible to provide a one-size-fits-all approach that will serve as a universal type of solution. Our experience has shown that Swift Performance Lite does a great job right out the box, and that's why we'll use it. However, we've seen cases where it could break a website, so we'll propose an alternative, a combination of Auto-Optimize and WP Super Cache. You can find more details about setting up Auto-Optimize and WP Super Cache in our blog post, which is linked in the description of this video. So let's go ahead and install Swift Performance Lite. Upon activation, the plugin asks us to go through a quick setup wizard. The automatic settings produce great results, so let's directly use the auto-config option. Let's test our website just to make sure everything looks okay. The shop page appears to be working. I can add products to my cart, so everything looks good. Now let's test the performance of our website with both GTmetrix and Google's PSI. And we got a 99% page speed score and a 96% Y-slow score, a fully loaded time of just over a second, just 25 requests in total, and a total page size of under a megabyte. And if we take a look at Google's PSI, you can see we have a score of 85 points for the mobile version, which is pretty good, and a nearly perfect score of 99 points for the desktop. One last recommendation from Google PSI that we can easily address is the following. Serve static assets with an efficient cache policy, 11 resources found, and you can see that these are all font files and an SVG image and a couple of JS and CSS files. To fix that, you can change the following line in your .htaccess file. Expires by default, access 2 days to 1 year. And that way, all file extensions that have not been configured explicitly would be cached for 1 year. If you test the website now after applying this change, this warning should no longer be produced and the overall score should improve even further. Let's give it a try, and as you can see, we've taken care of this warning and our score has increased further on mobile and we've reached a perfect 100 score on desktop. So we achieved a great turnaround by applying a number of different optimization techniques. Keep in mind, however, that this setup might not be perfect for your website. In particular, Swift Performance Lite could cause issues with certain websites, but this whole setup has worked perfectly on a number of different real-life WordPress websites that we tested with, and it has helped us achieve nearly perfect scores each time. It certainly won't hurt for you to try these tweaks, and you can check the blog post linked in the description of this video for even more tips and techniques. Thanks for watching.